The Mediterranean, a vast and unpredictable expanse, where ancient civilizations rise and fall along its shores. Among these early powerhouses, one small yet formidable culture emerges, shaping the course of history like few others: the Phoenicians. They weren't just traders, they were the master mariners of their time, turning the sea into their highway and the stars into their map. In this epic journey, we'll sail through the entire history of the Phoenicians, from their humble beginnings in city-states like Tyre and Sidon, to their role as the architects of a trade network that connected the ancient world. So ready your sails and prepare to explore the legacy of the Phoenicians, a people whose influence echoes through the annals of history. Our journey begins around 2500 BC in a region nestled between the towering mountains and the shimmering Mediterranean coast, in what we now call Lebanon, Israel, and Syria. The Phoenicians, descendants of the Canaanites, weren't just skilled sailors, they were master traders, and their early city-states, like Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos, were bustling hubs of commerce. These cities weren't part of a unified kingdom, but instead functioned like independent states, each ruled by its own king. Imagine them as the ancient world's version of city startups, each one trying to outdo the other in the bustling marketplace of the Mediterranean. The Phoenicians faced a challenge. Their homeland's terrain was mountainous, covered in thick cedar forests and crisscrossed by impassable ravines. But while most people might see this as a reason to stay put, the Phoenicians saw it as an invitation to take to the seas. The Mediterranean became their highway, and they built ships that were the envy of the ancient world. They were the ultimate middlemen, trading everything from cedarwood to luxury goods across the ancient empires of Egypt, Assyria, and beyond. But these weren't just any traders, they were innovators. The Phoenicians are credited with inventing the keel. The Phoenicians are part of shipbuilding that made their vessels more stable and seaworthy. They also developed a 22-character alphabet, a revolutionary system that democratized writing and laid the foundation for many modern languages. Think of it as the ancient world's version of a tech startup with a game-changing app. Now let's talk about the name Phoenician. It's actually a Greek word that's often associated with a unique purple dye produced along the Levantine coast. Extracted from the murex sea snail, this dye was so valuable that it was literally worth its weight in silver. By the 4th century BC, the Greek writer Theopompus was singing the praises of this dye, which became the exclusive color of royalty, a trend that continues even today. The Phoenicians' mastery of this dye-making process was just one of the many reasons their reputation spread across the ancient world. Interestingly, the Phoenicians probably didn't call themselves Phoenicians. Instead, they identified by their city-states like Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos. These cities were the jewels of the Mediterranean, each with its own distinct character and connections. Byblos, for example, had strong ties to Egypt, while Tyre was closely linked to Judea and Jerusalem. As we sail further into the past, we encounter one of the great mysteries of ancient history: the Sea Peoples. Around the 12th century BC, these mysterious marauders showed up along the shores of the eastern Mediterranean, contributing to what historians call the Late Bronze Age collapse. They ravaged the Hittite Empire, disrupted Egyptian control in Canaan, and left chaos in their wake. It was like a Mediterranean-wide game of Risk, with everything up for grabs. But here's where it gets interesting: the Phoenicians managed to survive this turmoil relatively unscathed. Some scholars suggest they may have struck deals with the Sea Peoples, while others think they might have simply paid them off. Whatever the case, the Phoenician city-states not only survived, they thrived. With the old empires in disarray, the Phoenicians found themselves in a prime position to dominate the region economically. The centuries between 1000 and 800 BC marked the golden age of Phoenicia. This was when the Phoenicians truly hit their stride, establishing trade networks that spanned the entire Mediterranean. Their ships became a common sight from the shores of North Africa to the coasts of Spain and beyond. The Phoenicians were not just traders, they were colonizers too. Realizing that their homeland didn't have enough resources to support their expanding population, they took to the seas to find new opportunities. Over a few centuries, they established colonies all over the Mediterranean, in places like Cyprus, Rhodes, Sicily, Sardinia, and even as far as Spain. Among these colonies, one city would rise to become the most famous and powerful of all: Carthage. Carthage, founded around the 9th century BC, became the crown jewel of the Phoenician colonies. According to legend, it was established by Queen Dido after fleeing her brother's tyranny in Tyre. In reality, Carthage was likely colonized by settlers from Tyre seeking new opportunities. Carthage grew into a mighty city-state, eventually becoming a significant power in the Mediterranean and the focal point of one of history's most famous rivalries with Rome. But the Phoenicians weren't always their own masters. Despite their economic success and seafaring prowess, they often found themselves under the thumb of more powerful neighbors. From the 16th to the 13th centuries BC, the Egyptians held sway over Phoenicia. Later in the 9th century BC, the Assyrians began to exert control over the region. The Assyrian kings Tiglath-Pileser I and Sennacherib made Phoenicia part of their empire, although the Phoenician city-states managed to maintain a degree of autonomy by paying tribute. Tyre, under King Baal, became a vassal state, providing naval support to the Assyrians in exchange for control over other Phoenician cities. However, this arrangement wasn't always peaceful. Rebellions flared up from time to time, but the Assyrians typically quashed them with their usual brutality. When the Assyrian Empire fell around 615 BC, the Phoenician city-states enjoyed a brief period of independence before falling under the control of the Neo-Babylonians. King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon laid siege to Tyre for over a decade, eventually forcing it to submit, though on relatively favorable terms. By 540 BC, the Persian Achaemenid Empire, under Cyrus the Great, absorbed Phoenicia into its vast territories. The Persians allowed the Phoenicians a great deal of autonomy, primarily because they valued their naval expertise. The Phoenician navy played a crucial role in several Persian military campaigns, including the invasion of Greece in 480 BC. The Persian rule over Phoenicia lasted until the arrival of one of history's most famous conquerors, Alexander the Great. In 332 BC, Alexander marched into Phoenicia after defeating the Persian forces. Most of the Phoenician cities, including Byblos and Sidon, surrendered without a fight, but Tyre, proud and defiant, refused to bow to the Macedonian king. What followed was one of the most famous sieges in ancient history. Tyre was situated on an island and protected by massive walls. Alexander, never one to back down from a challenge, ordered the construction of a causeway from the mainland to the island, a feat of engineering that eventually allowed his forces to breach Tyre's defenses. After a brutal 7-month siege, Alexander's troops stormed the city, killing thousands and selling the survivors into slavery. It was a devastating blow to Phoenician power. With Tyre's fall, the remaining Phoenician cities quickly submitted to Alexander. The Hellenization of Phoenicia began in earnest after Alexander's death in 323 BC, as the region became part of the Seleucid Empire, one of the successor states of Alexander's empire. Greek culture, language, and religion gradually permeated Phoenician society, marking the beginning of the end for Phoenician cultural identity. But while the age of the Phoenicians as a distinct people was coming to an end, their legacy was just beginning. The Phoenicians were the original globalization pioneers, connecting disparate cultures across the Mediterranean through trade and communication. Their alphabet became the foundation for Greek and Latin scripts, influencing countless languages, including our own. Even Carthage, the greatest of the Phoenician colonies, played a crucial role in shaping history. Although Carthage eventually fell to Rome in the Punic Wars, it left a lasting impact on Roman military tactics, commerce, and culture. The Roman historian Pliny the Elder even noted that Carthage had once been Rome's greatest rival in the quest for world domination, a rivalry that would shape the course of Western history. By the time Rome conquered Phoenicia in 62 BC, many of the unique characteristics that had defined the Phoenicians had faded. The region was incorporated into the Roman province of Syria, and Phoenician culture gradually disappeared as it merged with the dominant Hellenistic and Roman cultures. So as we wrap up our journey through the history of the Phoenicians, let's take a moment to appreciate their unseen influence. The Phoenicians may not have built towering monuments or left behind epic poetry, but their contributions to the world are undeniable. They were the original navigators of the ancient world, the inventors of the alphabet, and the middlemen who connected civilizations across the seas. Their story is one of resilience, innovation, and adaptability, a story that, much like their beloved cedar wood, has stood the test of time. The next time you use an alphabetic script, remember that it all started with those intrepid Phoenician traders who set sail on the Mediterranean, leaving behind a legacy that continues to shape our world today. Thank you for joining me on this epic voyage through the history of the Phoenicians. Remember, whether you're navigating the high seas or just trying to navigate life, take a page from the Phoenicians' book, innovate, adapt, and keep sailing forward.